The evening before the election, Donald Trump stepped onto the stage in Pittsburgh, but instead of delivering a confident closing message, he served up a series of bizarre and controversial remarks that left many in his audience stunned. As his campaign shows signs of desperation and cracks under pressure, Trump's words betrayed the unease simmering beneath his bravado. This night could go down as one of his most unsettling moments on the campaign trail, and it's a reflection of how far things have fallen for the ex-president, who once captivated Republican hearts and minds with his unapologetically bold persona. Trump's attacks weren't limited to Democrats. His ire extended to his own campaign staff, the media, and even members of the audience. His disturbing comments on women, migrants, and even his Republican rival, Vice President Kamala Harris, highlighted his state of panic as he faces the very real prospect of losing and possibly facing serious legal repercussions. Here's a breakdown of his unsettling speech that left the crowd both confused and repulsed, making this rally an unforgettable disaster. The troubling remarks begin. As the night kicked off, Trump set an uncomfortable tone with unsettling comments aimed at a female audience member. His attempt at humor veered into the inappropriate as he fixated on her appearance and then turned to his campaign manager, Susan Wild, for permission to continue. He remarked, "Of course, she was from Italy, beautiful young lady, which I'm not allowed to say. You can't say beautiful, so I'll take beautiful, but she was a beautiful young lady." He continued, claiming that in today's politics, referring to a woman as beautiful is somehow career-ending, a bizarre and unfounded observation that many took as a sign of his declining awareness of modern social norms. Such comments, focusing on women's appearances rather than their substance, hark back to an era that society has largely left behind. But Trump's insistence on outdated and sexist rhetoric was only the beginning of his unraveling that night. A chilling plan: UFC fighters versus migrants. In a startling shift, Trump's focus then turned to his controversial and, some would say, appalling, suggestion for how to address immigration issues. He proposed a fight league where UFC fighters would square off against migrants, describing this imaginary setup as a league of champions. He even went so far as to envision a UFC-style arena where migrants would face off against professional fighters, a statement that borders on incitement and, at best, demonstrates his lack of empathy for individuals fleeing hardship and violence. His statement drew visible shock from some in the crowd, with murmurs rippling through the audience. Trump's fantasy scenario, proposing violence as a solution to complex immigration issues, was disturbing even by his own standards. Critics swiftly decried his comments as gladiatorial and inhumane, noting that such rhetoric dangerously stokes division and violence, especially among his most fervent supporters. Attack on Kamala Harris. Misogyny on full display. As the rally wore on, Trump turned his sights on Vice President Kamala Harris, dismissing a recent Harris rally in Philadelphia as a little rally. When I say little, I mean little. His remarks seemed particularly jarring in light of the Harris rally's reported size, with thousands in attendance compared to Trump's own thinning crowds. Trump took this comparison as an opportunity to belittle Harris, portraying her event as insignificant while downplaying her influence. His attack on Harris, whom he referred to dismissively, highlighted his growing discomfort with her popularity. Yet the crowd was noticeably less energized by his criticism, perhaps signaling that his supporters were tiring of such redundant attacks on his opponents. The bizarre celebrity commentary. In a puzzling aside, Trump then began commenting on Beyoncé's political appearances. He insinuated that Beyoncé had supported Hillary Clinton in 2016 with a lack of enthusiasm, accusing her of showing up only for a paycheck. According to Trump, her absence of musical performance somehow signified a lack of genuine support. This irrelevant digression left many scratching their heads as he transitioned abruptly from policies and current issues to gossip about celebrities. This fixation on Beyoncé and other stars displayed a peculiar insecurity. Instead of focusing on his policy goals or vision for the country, Trump chose to lash out at celebrities, as though competing for the same audience. His fixation on Hollywood figures suggested he felt a growing gap in appeal. While stars like Beyoncé rally thousands, Trump's increasingly insular speeches are showing signs of wear among even his most loyal fans. Trump's disturbing UFC fantasy. Mike Tyson versus Kamala Harris. One of the most shocking moments of the night came when Trump proposed a UFC-style showdown between boxing legend Mike Tyson and Vice President Kamala Harris. "Can you imagine Mike in the ring with Kamala?" he quipped, as laughter turned to gasps from the crowd. The comment was not only outlandish but deeply troubling, showing a cavalier attitude toward violence against women in politics, a line even his most ardent supporters found difficult to cross. The remark was widely criticized on social media, with some labeling it as incitement and a further sign of Trump's deteriorating sense of propriety. Absence of Ivanka and Jared, a family divided. Notably absent from the stage that night were Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, two key figures from Trump's previous campaigns. Their absence was conspicuous, suggesting that perhaps even Trump's own family members are wary of his increasingly erratic behavior. While he invited other family members on stage, the absence of Ivanka and Jared hinted at deeper tensions within his inner circle, signaling that those closest to him may be pulling away as his campaign falters. The watermelon head insult. Adam Schiff under fire. In a return to his signature style of name-calling, Trump targeted Democratic Representative Adam Schiff with a string of insults, referring to him as watermelon head and of scumbag. He fixated on Schiff's appearance, mocking him for his tiny neck and massive head, while claiming Schiff is evil and likely going to be a senator. The exchange was mean-spirited and juvenile, another low point that painted Trump as increasingly unhinged. This attack, aimed at an individual who has long been one of Trump's critics, demonstrated his willingness to stoop to personal attacks rather than focusing on substantive critiques. Yet rather than laughter, the crowd response was muted, as even his supporters seemed uncomfortable with the baseless personal insults. The spin of desperation, declining crowds, and low energy. Perhaps the clearest sign of trouble came in the visible frustration among Trump's audience members. Reports indicate that seats were left empty and enthusiasm waned as the evening progressed. Drudge Report headlines summed it up as a half-empty arena where Trump's usual crowd had dwindled. The campaign struggled to maintain crowd numbers, even in traditionally supportive areas like Pittsburgh, pointed to a sharp contrast with past rallies that filled arenas and energized the base. Even Trump seemed to notice the shift. Rather than his usual confidence, he displayed flashes of unease, at times questioning aloud why he was facing such challenges in crowd retention. His messaging turned defensive, as if compensating for the smaller turnout, a clear sign that his base is starting to question his reliability as a leader. Trump's speech in Pittsburgh revealed a campaign and a candidate on the verge of collapse. What was intended as a final rallying cry ahead of the election instead became a display of his insecurities, missteps, and misguided priorities. His inappropriate remarks toward women, violent rhetoric about migrants, and bizarre challenges to celebrities painted a picture of a man more concerned with settling personal scores than leading a country. As the election looms, Trump's Pittsburgh rally will likely stand as a sobering reminder of the risks of divisive leadership and the consequences of unchecked power. His comments struck even some of his most loyal supporters as unsettling, casting doubt on his once firm grasp over the Republican Party. In the end, the speech didn't rally the crowd. It left them disturbed, questioning if this is truly the leader they want representing their values and vision for America.